Greetings to one and all. This is Doc Ock coming to you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central. Whoo, boy, it's good to be black amongst you one more time doing my rhyme. Yes, yes. Great getting up in the morning. So, continuing on with our story of Malcolm X and his upbringing, going all deep off into the man's background and into the background as much as possible of his parents as well, recording their background and telling a little bit more of their story so we can get a little more insight into the man. That's our plan for the month, the merry month of May in the year 2021. This is what we're doing that we call fun. But before we get started, you know what we need to do. Go ahead and give us that like if you're seeing us on Facebook. Give us a thumbs up if you're watching us on the tube. And, of course, spread the word to your family and friends. We've been getting lots of requests for new members, new friends, etc. We appreciate that. We can't, sometimes they look a little sketchy. We can't always tell who's who. But if you all are friends with someone who's already a member, then that makes it all, that helps out quite a bit. Okay, that gives some kind of credibility. Pay attention to the questions. We do ask a few questions too for all our new members. So also answer those questions if you could in full. And last but not least, let's go ahead and pick a proverb for the day. Ooh, okay, here we go. Right off the top, right off the rip, as we say. He who hunts two rats catches none. He who hunts two rats catches none. So y'all know that one already. Bird in the hand's worth two in the bush. And that's a proverb from the nation of Buganda. Buganda, not Uganda, but Buganda. The Buganda people who live in, some of whom live in Uganda. All right, so let's go ahead and get it on with the reading here. Get on with the getting on, because our time is winding down. But we still got quite a bit of time today. All right, so Malcolm was talking about Mrs. Adcock and the Gohanas who went with them to church, and how Mrs. Adcock was always trying to help anybody she could, visiting anybody who was sick, etc. And she would tell him, one time she told, years later, she told him something she remembered he remembered for quite a while. Malcolm, there's one thing I like about you. You're no good, but you don't try to hide it. You're not a hypocrite. So I like that quote. I guess he liked it too. The more I began to stay away from home and visit people and steal from the stores, the more aggressive I became in my inclinations. I never wanted to wait for anything. I was growing up fast, physically more so than mentally. As I began to be recognized more around the town, I started to become aware of the peculiar attitude of white people toward me. I sensed that it had to do with my father. It was an adult version of what several white children had said at school, in hints, or sometimes in the open, which really expressed what their parents had said, that the Black Legion or the Klan had killed my father, and the insurance company had pulled a fast one in refusing to pay my mother the policy money. That almost sounds like the insurance people were members of the Black Legion. Oh, let me not forget my images. Almost forgot. I always have to remember not to kick myself, to remind me to do the needful. There you go. Okay, let's get it on in there. Boom. The real X-Man. The real X-Man. All right, so Yeah, so it almost sounds like the insurance people were also part of the Black Legion, which wouldn't be a surprise because you might be surprised at who was a member because it was included the sheriff, people in the sheriff's department, the mayor's office, etc. When I began to get caught stealing now and then, the state welfare people began to focus on me when they came to our house. I can't remember how I first became aware that they were talking about taking me away. What I first remember along that line was my mother raising a storm about being able to bring up her own children. She would whip me for stealing, and I would try to alarm the neighborhood with my yelling. One thing I've always been proud of is that I never raised my hand against my mother, just my voice. In the summertime at night, in addition to all the other things we did, some of us boys would slip out down the road or across the pastures and go cooning watermelons. Now, you know what a raccoon is. You know it's got them black circles around its eyes. And for some reason, we became identified with them raccoons. I'm really not, I don't get it because we don't have circles around our eyes like that. But yeah, it's another word for nigger, cooning. White people have always associated watermelons with Negroes, and they sometimes call Negroes coons, among all the other names. And so stealing watermelons became cooning them. If white boys were doing it, it implied that they were only acting like Negroes. Right. Whites have always hidden or justified all the guilts they could by ridiculing or blaming Negroes. Well, I tell you what, my dad wouldn't eat watermelons for years. He refused to eat watermelons. But in his later years, you know, before he passed on, bless his soul, he was not only he would eat some watermelon. Matter of fact, he'd get mad if I didn't give him any of mine. But those watermelons and the images they had of us eating watermelons, yeah, it was enough to shame the devil. One Halloween night, I remember that a bunch of us were out tipping over those old country outhouses. And one old farmer, I guess he had tipped over enough in his day, had set a trap for us. Always, you sneak up from behind the outhouse, then you gang together and push it to tip it over. This farmer had taken his outhouse off the hole and set it just in front of the hole. Well, we came sneaking up single file in the darkness, and the two white boys in the lead fell down into the outhouse hole neck deep. Oh, that really was a trap. They smelled so bad, it was all we could do. We could stand to get them out. And that finished us all for that Halloween. I had just missed falling in myself. The whites were so used to taking the lead, this time it had really gotten them in the hole. Oh boy, I really don't remember that story. I love rereading stuff. Thus, in various ways, I learned various things. I picked strawberries, and though I can't recall what I got per crate for picking, I remember that after working hard all one day, I wound up with about $1, which was a whole lot of money in those times. I was so hungry, I didn't know what to do. I was walking away toward town with visions of buying something good to eat, and this older white boy I knew, Richard Dixon, came up and asked me if I wanted to match nickels. He had plenty of change for my $1. In about a half hour, he had all the change back, including my $1. And instead of going to town to buy something, I went home with nothing. And I was bitter. But that was nothing compared to what I felt when I found out later that he had cheated. There's a way that you can catch and hold the nickel and make it come up the way you want. This was my first lesson about gambling. If you see somebody winning all the time, he ain't gambling, he's cheating. Later on in life, if I were continuously losing in any gambling situation, I would watch very closely. It's like the Negro in America seeing the white man win all the time. He's a professional gambler. He has all the cards and the odds stacked on his side, and he is always dealt to our people from the bottom of the deck. I don't know if y'all recall, but that's what T-Rump said. We were going to get tired of winning. Now, based on what he just said, and the fact that T-Rump also at one point owned a casino, or more than one, maybe more than one casino, but I know he owned at least one down there in Atlantic City. Yeah, may give us a little more insight into some things happening right now. About this time, my mother began to be visited by some Seventh-day Adventists who had moved into a house not too far down the road from us. They would talk to her for hours at a time and leave booklets and leaflets and magazines for her to read. She read them, and Wilfred, who had started back to school after we had begun to get the relief food supplies, also read a lot. His head was forever in some book. Before long, my mother spent much time with the Adventists. It's my belief that what mostly influenced her was that they had even more diet restrictions than she always had taught and practiced with us. Like us, they were against eating rabbit and pork. They followed the Mosaic dietary laws. They ate nothing of the flesh without a split hoof or that didn't chew a cud. We began to go with my mother to the Adventist meetings that were held further out in the country. For us children, I know that the major attraction was the good food they served. But we listened too. There were a handful of Negroes from small towns in the area, but I would say that it was 99% white. The Adventists felt that we were living at the end of time, that the world soon was coming to an end. But they were the friendliest white people I had ever seen. In some ways, though, we children noticed, and when we were back at home discussed, that they were different from us, such as the lack of enough seasoning in their food, and a different way that white people smelled. Meanwhile, the state welfare people kept after my mother. By now, she didn't make it any secret that she hated them and didn't want them in our house. In her house, rather. But they exerted their right to come. And I have many, many times reflected upon how, talking to us children, they began to plant the seeds of division in our minds. They would ask such things as who was smarter than the other. And they would ask me why I was so different. I think they felt that getting children into foster homes was a legitimate part of their function, and the result would be less troublesome, however they went about it. And when my mother fought them, they went after her. First through me. I was the first target. I stole. That implied that I wasn't being taken care of by my mother. All of us were, he put the wrong word in there. Okay. All of us were mischievous at some time or another. I more so than any of the rest. Filbert and I kept a battle going, and this was just one of the dozen things that kept building up the pressure on my mother. Let's see, who's that? Yeah, it figures. They kept building up pressure on my mother. There it goes. I'm not sure just how or when the idea was first dropped by the welfare workers that our mother was losing her mind. But I can distinctly remember hearing crazy applied to her by them when they learned that the Negro farmer who was in the next house down the road from us had offered to give us some butchered pork, a whole pig, maybe even two of them, and she had refused. We all heard them call my mother crazy to her face for refusing good meat. It meant nothing to them, even when she explained that we had never eaten pork, that it was against her religion as a Seventh-day Adventist. Yeah, they didn't hear none of that. All they knew was it was good meat, and if you was hungry, you should have just ate it. Yeah, interesting. So at any rate, we're gonna leave off there. We're almost through the first. We're just in the first chapter of this book. This is a heavy book. It doesn't seem like it's that heavy, but it is, and the print is somewhat tiny. It would actually be good if I had a bigger print book. I might have to get me another copy of that book with bigger print. Might make it a little easier to read. But in the meantime, we're going to sign off here today. We'll be black tomorrow and every other day this week all the way through Friday. And then Saturday, we'll be doing a special where we will talk about, we're going to have a presentation on some of the background of Earl and Louise Little and some of the forces that were coming down on them. We're going to go into some more detail about that, give you a better idea about what happened there, because nobody really talks about it and what effect that had on the children. But it does go right along with this whole idea that we have today about the post-traumatic slave syndrome. So, last word. Make sure, and don't forget to tune in tonight at 9 for, we're going to either be reading the last segment or the second to the last segment out of the book March, Book 1. This is a series of books about John Lewis and how he got involved in the civil rights struggle. Really good book, and we're winding down to the end of it, so you won't want to miss out. Make sure to tune in for that tonight. Meanwhile, go ahead and give us a like if you've seen this on Facebook. Give us a thumbs up if you're looking at us on the tube. Don't forget to subscribe to our Tubular Black Facts channel. And if you would, make a generous donation in the form of a one-time or a recurring donation. Recurring is preferable or preferable, even if it's only a $5 donation, because if you do $5 a month for 12 months, that's actually, in a way, it's better than doing $60 in one lump sum, because it gives some regularity to our income. We can get those checks coming to us on a regular basis. You probably didn't know this, but it takes us 75 days from the day you make a donation. We don't get the money for a good 75 days. So anything you donate today, we have to wait quite some time before we get it. So the recurring donations definitely will be a blessing and a big help. All right, enough said. Peace out without a doubt. We'll be black tonight at 9. Look for us then. This is Doc Ock at noon and 9, signing off.